Today's big question: why can't Iran destroy Israel's airports? For the past 11 days, Israel has been under attack by Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. They're using ballistic missiles and drones to target Israeli-owned cargo ships and airports. Now, this is bad news for the Israelis, because they rely heavily on their ports and airports to import goods. But it's not great news for the Iranians either, because every time they hit an Israeli airport, it ends up backfiring on them. So why don't they just hit one of Israel's airports directly? It seems like it would be a smart move, doesn't it? Well, let me explain why. When the Iranians attack Israel via its airports, they aren't attacking Israel. They're attacking Yemen. The main international airport in Yemen is in the capital city of Sana'a. And guess who controls that airport? The Houthi rebels. That's right. The Houthis seized the airport in 2015 when they overthrew the Yemeni government and installed their own puppet regime in Sana'a. They've made that airport their own little personal playground. Now, most countries try to keep their airports separate from the rest of the country's military. That's because airports are usually more or less civilian infrastructure. And if you want to project an image of your country as being open for business, having fighter jets roaring around the tarmac isn't really conducive to that. That's why most of the world's militaries keep their planes separate from the airports. They have air bases outside cities where they can store and launch their fighters without getting in the way of commercial operations. But the Houthis don't do things like normal people. No, they like to make things difficult for themselves. Ever since they took over Sana'a International Airport, they've used it to store weapons and launch attacks against both the Yemenis and the Israelis. In fact, the UN has repeatedly asked the Houthis to stop using Sana'a Airport for military purposes, only for the Houthis to ignore those requests and use the airport to launch even more attacks. Now, if you were Iran, how would you like it if every time you launched an attack against Israel, Israel responded by bombing the Iranian airport that was being used to launch the attack? Yeah, I didn't think so. That's why Iran doesn't like when the Houthis use Sana'a International Airport to attack Israel. Every time the Houthis attack Israel from Sana'a, Israel responds by bombing the airport. And that means that the next time Iran wants to send a shipment of weapons to the Houthis through Sana'a, so if Iran wants to continue supplying the Houthis with weapons, they can't use Sana'a. This is why Iran built an airport at the other end of the country. It's near the city of Sayan, which is much closer to the Yemeni-Israeli border. But there's a problem with that. Sayan International Airport doesn't have the capacity to handle large shipments of weapons. Sure, it can handle some light weapons like the ones the Houthis used in today's attack, but it can't handle heavy weapons like attack drones or ballistic missiles. Not to mention, it's not very close to the border, so Iran has to transport the weapons all the way from Sayan to Sana'a, which takes time and manpower and fuel. Not to mention, once they get the weapons to Sana'a, they still have to convince the Houthis to use them, and we all know how that goes. So for now, Iran is stuck with a useless airport in the middle of the desert, and a bunch of angry Houthis who refuse to listen to reason. I'm a columnist for a major publication. Thank you for watching this video. To keep these videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.